Hello, it's Nick here. Today I wanted to break down a scene, or really part of a scene, of a short film that I'm in the midst of filming. It's about 60-ish% there, but over the weekend we shot a nighttime scene, but we didn't film at night, we actually filmed it during the day. So I wanted to break down how we went about doing that, and if I had my time again, what I probably would want to do differently. Because it's all about learning, right? So yeah, I guess this is a new kind of series, so let's jump into it. For those of you new to the channel, my name is Nick. I'm a Australian-based cinematographer, filmmaker, and I do a lot of my work traditionally in the corporate center, and I'm trying to make the bridge between kind of videographer, video producer into filmmaker. And I've spent the last 12 months really focusing on cinematography, and as part of that I've been working as DOP on a number of short films. I want to keep on doing it because I'm loving the narrative art form at the minute, and I'm learning a bunch as we go through as well. So follow along, and you can definitely learn from my many mistakes. So this is a short film. It's called Let's Play. Definitely worth giving it a watch when it's done, because it's so far it's shaping up to be a pretty cool little short, I think. So I'm the DOP. We shot over the weekend four scenes, but two of them downstairs in a townhouse apartment kind of setting. Now in Australia, in townhouses, they're two-story duplexes that you have your downstairs. Generally speaking, is your front entrance, kitchen, living room and dining area. And in townhouses they tend to be really squashed together, and that was definitely the case on this particular short. And you can kind of see this is our main, this actually plays as our main location in different areas of the house. So the challenge was, how do you change a very brightly lit, ambient lit townhouse downstairs? How do you change it into something like nighttime, and how can you do it convincingly? So that was really the challenge, because we shot exactly at the same time of day. From this particular scene we did on the Saturday, this particular scene we did on the Sunday. How a lot of plastic. So let's get into how we actually went about and did that. A couple of technical things before we get started. We're shooting this on you can actually see it there, it's Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. This is beefed up into my little shoulder mount that I love to rock. This scene we are shooting on the Sigma, the majority of it we're actually shooting on the Sigma art series, 18 to 35, 50 to 100 mil. They're beautiful lenses, nice and sharp, but there are a number of scenes that use vintage lenses or specialty lenses. I'll get into a lot of that, I'm sure, as I kind of go through and break down, but the idea is to break down the scenes and think about how I went about lighting it and what I would do differently. So before we get kind of stuck into how we get nighttime when we're filming at daytime, let's just have a quick look at the short, or the scene. Starts off well. He's having some wine. That always is a good start. And you've got someone who's not too happy.
Jesus.
Not happy, Jan.
What have you done?
Well, I thought we could celebrate. We're officially moved in together.
I tried to stop this. You wouldn't listen.
Stop what?
She thinks she loves you. But if she does, she'll die.
The cheese knife.
I can't let that happen.
See,
all right.
This is some kind of joke. It's really not funny.
So that's pretty much it. So there is more that happens in this scene, but I just wanted to break down these two shots especially are a really good indication of ultimately what the lighting actually looks like. And obviously I don't want to give too much of the story away, but essentially in this scene we've got two characters. The main protagonist is the female. She has had something happen to her in the previous scene. She's not too happy about it. And the guy, unfortunately at this stage, is a little unwitting and doesn't know exactly yet what's happening. So this is the part of the story where we're really building up into what's kind of taking place in the film. And the first challenge obviously was turning it to nighttime. How can you get it dark outside the windows? Well, the obvious answer is tape stuff to the windows, right? That's exactly what we did. We used, ideally what you want to be using is material that doesn't reflect light. It absorbs it, and that's more often than not on a film set, it's going to be duvetine or some black, very thick cloth or something like that. In Australia, we have an equivalent called mole, that's the one. And I've got a ton of it. I definitely had enough to place over the windows. Now, what we wanted to do was, I knew that I didn't just want it to be dark outside. When you're, the advantage of starting at nighttime is, especially when you're designing the nighttime, you kind of do get to make it look exactly like you'd like. So whatever you're trying to achieve, arguably you can, because you're starting with a blank canvas, versus when you are shooting it in daylight and you have a big source, i.e. the sun, and you've got to play to the strengths of whatever the location has, right? Whereas at nighttime, you can be a lot more selective and a lot more purposeful with how you light the scene. So I wanted outside to be black, obviously, but I wanted the ability to cheat some lights close enough to the window. So punching down this way from the kitchen out to the back, that's a big kind of sliding door. I think it was about 3.5 meters wide, so it's quite a sizable door, quite a sizable window and space that light could get in. Well, outside there was like a mini kind of veranda, and the townhouse, the second story, had this overhang. Out the back, it probably had about 1.5 meters overhang. Out the front, 0.5 meter to 1 meter if we were lucky. But it was a perfect anchor point to actually just gaffer tape any material we wanted around the back, and then that allowed us to sneak in lighting frames and fixtures to at least push something through the windows, both towards the back and, as you'll see in a second, in the front. So out the back, I felt like I wanted some kind of strong like moonlight source. I knew we wouldn't actually be over where the guys are sitting on the couch over there. For this scene, we wouldn't actually be over there, but I felt like this is just a good opportunity to stylize it a little bit, not just have it lit by the practicals in the scene, but actually have some kind of source coming from outside. So I wanted some kind of moonlight. So we used black plastic to black out the windows with that overhang, utilizing that overhang. Now, harder to do than just covering windows. Just covering windows is super simple, but like I said, if you want some kind of source from outside, you need some space. So why plastic and not duvetine? It was very windy. I wish we had used duvetine, but it was raining as well, and so we didn't have the ability to I didn't have that many C-stands that we could make huge frames to wrap around, essentially, or enough speed rail or anything like that we could kind of make a frame that we could then hang the fabric over and then down to allow us space to sneak in light. So I knew I'd have to attach to the building itself. Not always the best solution, but the one for us. And it was raining, so I was concerned that the duvetine over time, we were setting up in the morning, going upstairs and filming a morning scene, a sunrise scene in the bedroom, and then coming back down and filming this scene we just watched. And so I knew if it was sitting there in the rain, gathering, like soaking up all that water, it's going to get pretty heavy and probably fall off because it was just attached with the gaffer tape. So that was the first major challenge. That then also has some downsides, because if we jump back into Resolve, as you can see, there's a light pushing out through this frosted pane here with those slats. But that little streak you see, that's reflectance from the fact that you can actually see this shimmer of where the wind is just ruffling that plastic. And we were really unfortunate. It was so windy, and that's obviously a downside. If you're really studying, you go like, nighttime doesn't reflect light like that. Now, I think in the context, it kind of looks like it's on the glass anyway. So I think you can kind of, I don't know. I think you can kind of get away with it. Yeah, you can kind of get away with it. But as you can see, that's what we did is we put lights out the back, where that sliding veranda door was, and also if we come back towards the start, we've got a light just above Michael the actor's head. It's kind of you can kind of see it's which side it is. Again, you can see that reflectance in that plastic. A little bit of VFX love, I'm sure, in post, and they'll be able to get rid of a little chunk of that if it is bothersome. But the idea was I wanted something to play like it was some street lighting and maybe like a outside, maybe like a porch light. And I think this sells. You can definitely see some. I think it's part of a stand or a control unit or something like that, which is a bit of an annoying thing. Maybe it's a sandbag, but as he's walking around. Does it sell? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, there are some areas where I'm like, that definitely needs some work. But if you push down those blacks enough, I think we'd be able to cover off a nice chunk of that. And hopefully, I mean, if you're following the motion, it's not really too much of an issue. So let's come backwards then. We only see it for a split second. Again, there's some of that kind of textured reflectance where like you can kind of imagine like the plastic's been folded over, so it's got all these creases in, and you kind of see it like so we pushed an aperture 300D out the back there. Before I move on, actually let's talk about actually what lights are outside. So at the top here we've got an aperture 120D that was gelled with some kind of CTO. It was just a touch. I'm going to say it was like a quarter or a half CTO gel maybe. And then on this side, this was pure tungsten. I just wanted some color contrast, just something a little bit different, just to, again, kind of speak to the fact that hardly any two lights are the same color temperature these days. You can even see there was a practical LED strip that would light up the bar area there over the kitchen area, but there was nothing in that corner. And so when we were doing our run-throughs, it just looks so dark, that void, because of those cupboards as well. I pulled just a random practical that I have and just snuck it in there. Again, different color temperature. I think it's all right, in a perfect world maybe not, but and then the other major thing was where the stairs up to the balcony area upstairs. We blocked all the light up there, but there were two quite large windows, not quite skylights, but they were quite high up that we couldn't reach with the ladder we had. We couldn't get C-stands in place. We just couldn't reach out and block out the lighting up there. So what we had to end up doing was kind of just like shimmying in again a bunch of material. And so where the steps were, if you can imagine, you could probably walk up 5 of those steps. Everything then was almost blocked off, so you wouldn't actually be able to walk through because there was just a shit ton of material there. I think it was like one of those big foldable floppies that you can get, and just in black that we had there. In a perfect world, I think I would have loved to have a bit of like a spotlight, something reading as like a stairs light or something coming down and hitting just the far side of her head there, or near side of her head, I should probably say, just to give us something, just to make her pop out just a touch more. Before we go into, what it looks like, what else we've got, what lighting wise, most of this is done practically. In fact, if I go back to our reference photos here, you can see big old practical lamp. You can see a practical lamp in the corner that was more contemporary from IKEA. IKEA do nice contemporary modern lights if you need them. And then flipping around, we've got a practical lamp on the wall there. We've got some kind of like festoony, fairy-like kind of things. They were there because they're actually in another scene. We shooting back this way with a specialty lens just to get like some oval bokeh. Again, more on that. But here in this shot, you can really see the creases of that plastic. It really annoys me that I see that now. I wish we'd have risked it, to be honest, and just put the Duvetine up there, but I just felt it was going to just soak it up like a sponge. And then you've got two downlights. So one is an LED mat that I have. In fact, it's lighting me right now. And the other is another practical. We were just going to use this downlight. But what happens is, as we kind of move around the scene, we move from kind of the near side edge of this table. Michael then kind of moves back to the far side, and without using that practical, it went completely dark, and her worse so. Yeah, she was in real shadow there. So we had to kind of embrace that practical. I felt like maybe we could get a stand or a C-stand up there with some kind of panel or something up there, some kind of China wall maybe, because it was quite a high ceiling. But the challenge was, this is done as almost a one-er, not the whole scene, but certainly this lead up is done in one continuous shot. And so I knew, like, where would we be able to hide the C-stand, So that's probably my first thing that I would have done differently. I would have got an extension boom or some kind of rigging up there to rig between the two walls here, so I could get another panel like this. Number one, it would be exactly the same color temperature, because this is tungsten. This was gelled with a CTO tungsten, full CTO, but the practical LEDs, they wouldn't have been proper daylight. They would have been just something a little bit weird and off, which is why here it looks fine. It kind of hopefully sells what we're after. It's supposed to feel a little uneasy, but I feel like the skin tones here, especially on Michael here, are way worse compared to when they do end up moving and we start to benefit from my actual panel taped onto the crossbeam here. Looking back at what that's doing for our actors, I think that's just way nicer compared to back here. So sorry, Mr. or Mrs. Editor and colorist, you have a little bit of work to do, but maybe we can justify that it works for the scene, who knows. So the idea was we'd light practically and then motivate off of those practical sources. Okay, so what would I do differently? We already know I definitely throw some proper Duvetine back there for sure. It's hard to do when you don't have a crew, but man, I would have loved the ability to push this back even further so I could have filled up this window somehow. I don't know, maybe I could have frosted it and actually got it like blooming out and really kind of like throw some nice something. I don't know exactly what, but I feel like, looking back, this looks nice, up to the wine, picking up the wine kind of thing. This looks nice. I would have probably had, maybe if we could get a little bit higher, like having again some of this outside streetlight kind of lamp coming in, because there's nothing really here that pushes Michael off of the background. It would have been subtle, but it would have been nice to have snuck a light near the ceiling somehow. Again, I just didn't have the rigging for it, but that would have really pinged off that behind his ear, especially because when she, Jessie, the actress, comes down here, this is one problem I have, is that the lighting kind of suits. I like the downlight kind of feel, but there's no real eye light here, right? There's nothing that's like, we can see that something's not quite right, but I would have loved to read those eyes a little bit more. Jessie's got really, really expressive eyes, and it would have been great. Like when she starts to get a catchlight, you can really see the turmoil and the emotion in her eyes. And when we end up back this way, and we're right up here, and she gets pretty unhappy, it's subtle, but the downlight and the practicals in the corner, like they do catch in her eye a little bit, and so we can read her intentions and emotion way easier than back this way, you know. So I think by having a light in that corner above the cupboard somehow pointing down, we would have got a nice little edge wrap on Michael as he kind of turned back around. We would have just caught up her. It wouldn't have had to been intense. It could have been motivated from this like street lamp idea. It wouldn't have had to been that intense, but just a little bit. We could have just really pinged her eyes a little bit. So yeah, down some kind of light coming down the stairwell there would have been good. A hairlight here would have been good. So using the same panels as the far side of the room would have been good, just to marry up the skin tones a little bit. But when we do start to move around, there's a lot of options for play here, you know. So as we're kind of turning around with the practicals, we are motivating. So we're shooting far side key, which I really, really like. So when you are shooting the opposite side to where the lighting is, you start to get just this nice gradient and this really nice contrast coming out. And so when they get here, I think this looks great. I'm actually really quite happy. Now, I think like visually my eye, the one thing, like when I go from shot to shot, they're the same color temperature here. That looks really nice with Michael, because again, we've got the light kind of coming, which is actually down light, but it's kind of motivated from the corner light. And you got this nice light out of the back and giving him a nice bit of reflectance on the cheek there, and really, really brings him off the background. I think that's just fantastic. On the right-hand side of this bit of frame is insanely blue. The idea was to create a moonlight feel, which as we're kind of walking around, we do catch. And in another shot, we actually see, which just isn't in the sequence, we do see back there one more time as well. Couple of issues I have with this. I think it's way too saturated blue. I think I should have not used such a strong gel. Again, it was daylight. We were balancing for, I believe, like 3900 Kelvin. So already a daylight lamp would have looked a little bit bluer, and then I threw a CTO on it. So like we are super saturated. Again, in passing, it's fine. You know, it's fine. We read that it's coming from outside, but I wish I'd maybe just eased up a little bit. I don't know what I was thinking there. And also, you can really see it does have a bit of a beam angle to it. I should have really flooded that out to really try and get that to fill in down here as well. I just think that would have read a little bit more realistic. Again, I've never created a moon kind of color temperature, and there are a lot of schools of thought as to how you go about creating moonlight. Shane Hurlbert, I think, has a fantastic resource and fantastic advice for creating moonlight. Didn't listen to it here. We just gelled it blue, and here it's fine. Again, it's fine, but you and I would see that should be way less intense. Yeah, it should be way less saturated. And I think that would have read a little bit more naturally. But I'm generally liking how everything's exposed. I'm generally liking that. We do then get one thing that does work well. You can always like try and find ways to justify your mistakes. Is that when we see her, it's, you know, it is blue, it's cool. She's obviously going through something, and he is a lot warmer. So I do like that color contrast there. And yeah, that's the scene. So one long take. It took us about 6 or 7 takes to get that right. But what are your thoughts? How would you have lit differently? I can't think of any other things to say about how we lit that particular sequence. How have you created a nighttime scene during the day? I'd be really interested to know with a comment. There's a lot more to share with this film, so if you did enjoy seeing this kind of behind the scenes and this kind of breakdown, let me know, because I genuinely have an interest in sharing more, because it also does help me grow, as I said, as a filmmaker, as a cinematographer. Very excited with this short. Should be looking good. So look, I'll leave it there. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next video.